Okay, so let's move on to comp 6, follow through. And as I mentioned before, follow through is the termination of the action. So when the action comes to a stop, follow through is the tendency of a object to move past its intended termination point and then settle back to that point. So let me demonstrate what I mean, and it'll probably be a little bit more clear. So let's select the first text layer. That's the top one. And hit P to pull up your position, and we're going to go to frame 20. That's where we want the text to come to a stop in its current position. So click the stopwatch to create that first keyframe, and now we'll back up 5 frames, and this will be our overshoot keyframe, so we want to move it forward a little bit and then go back to the beginning of the layer. You can use the keyboard shortcut of I, by the way. The letter I on the keyboard will move your time indicator to the endpoint of the currently selected layer. So now you can see how our follow through is going to fly in, overshoot, and settle back. If we zoom in here and take a closer look, you can see how actually our motion path is extending past that farthest right keyframe again. So again, the way to fix that is to select all these keyframes, right click on those keyframes, go to keyframe interpolation, change spatial interpolation to linear, hit OK. Oh, whoops, did I pick the right one? Yeah, okay. And that got rid of it. So now it doesn't overshoot. It doesn't overshoot our overshoot keyframe. We'll select these two, the last 2 keyframes, and apply easy ease, and let's render a RAM preview and see what that looks like. And there we go, some nice subtle follow through just using an extra position keyframe. So the text tends to overshoot and settle back. Okay, so let's do the same thing with layer 2, except this time let's solo it just so we can focus on it. This time we'll use scale in combination with our position. So once again, we want to go to frame 20, set our position keyframe, back up 5 frames, have it overshoot, go to the beginning of the layer, move it off frame. Again, you can see how that motion path is overshooting our farthest keyframe there. So again, let's convert these keyframes to linear. Right click on the keyframes, keyframe interpolation, spatial interpolation to linear. You can also get there by going up to the animation menu, keyframe, or there we go, keyframe interpolation. So it flies in, overshoots, and settles back. Again, we'll easy ease these. But this time, as it comes screeching to a stop, we want to kind of exaggerate the momentum of the text by having the text kind of compress. Imagine these were cars of a train, and the engine slams on the brakes. All the cars behind it are going to kind of keep moving forward and want to pile up, right? So that's the kind of effect that we're looking for. So go to last keyframe, click the stopwatch for scale. It's going to return to its normal 100 by 100 by that frame. Then we want to go to the second position keyframe, and we'll compress it to 80 on the X, which means we need to add 20 to the vertical axis in order to appear to maintain its volume. And then we'll back up 10 frames from there, and we'll set it back to 100. So it doesn't really start to compress until the end of our, the motion as it tries to decelerate in a hurry. And so there you have it. Looks like the settle back is a little too quick. So all we got to do is grab those last keyframes and pull them down by a couple of 2 or 3 frames. Oh yeah, and see what a difference just adding a couple frames? That feels much better. Okay, one more. So let's solo layer 3. This time we're going to use our skew property of the transform effect. So go to Effect, Distort, Transform. We're going to use the skew parameter, and remember our skew axis needs to be at 90 degrees in order to skew it in the right direction. But look, it's kind of skewing from up here where the anchor point and position are in the effect. So we want it to skew from the base of the text. So to get that to work, we have to move our anchor point down, and we have to move the position down until they're at the base of the text. So now when we skew it, it's going to skew correctly. So have it start out kind of leaning back as it flies in, and then as it screeches to a stop, its momentum will carry it forward, and then it will settle back again. So let's go to that last keyframe at frame 20. Click the stopwatch for skew, set it to 0. We're going to back up 5 frames to frame 15. Crank the skew forward, and we'll back up 10 frames, and we'll pull the skew back the opposite direction. So now we need our position keyframes. So at frame 20, that's where it should come to a stop. Back up 5 frames and move it forward a little bit, to overshoot. Then we'll go to the first and pull it off screen. Again, we've got that motion path issue. So we'll convert the spatial interpolation to linear. Let's easy ease these last 4 keyframes. Actually, let's ease this first skew keyframe too. And we'll render RAM preview and see what that looks like. Cool. Again, the settle back seems to snap back a little quick, so I'm going to give that 2 or 3 more frames. Cool. I dig it. So it flies in. As it screeches to a stop, its momentum carries it forward. And then it settles back. So that's the idea behind follow through. So just taking a couple extra minutes to add in these couple extra keyframes to add some anticipation or follow through to the motion of your graphic elements or text. Those are the kind of fine details that take your work from being amateur to being more polished professional level animation.